All right, this is the final video for Algebra 2 Unit 6, looking at domain and range of polynomial functions. So just a real brief reminder of what we are referring to when we talk about domain and range. Domain and range are a way of referring to all of the possible x values and all of the possible y values of a function. So the domain is talking about the x values, and it refers to the left to right limits of that function. So the domain is a way of saying what x values are in this function, or what on the graph, how far does it go from the left to the right. Whereas the range is a way of saying what are the possible y values, or what are the up and down limits of a function. So just as an example, when I have a function that goes maybe like this, like a parabola, notice these arrows tell me a few things. First of all, they tell me that this graph goes forever up. Oops. About that. Let's go back here. All right. They tell me that it goes forever up. It also tells me that it goes forever this direction. However, there is a lower limit to that function down here where that bottom of that parabola curve are. So there would be some kind of limit to the range, but the domain would be the entire graph. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about domain and range. Let me just add a couple things to this drawing. So again, oops, let's undo. For domain, we're talking about we're talking about this. We're talking about how far does this go? The x, that's the domain. And the range is how far this is going on the y, or up and down. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. So one important thing for you to know, and I'll just put this right here on this page. For polynomial functions, the domain is always all real numbers. And the way that looks mathematically is this. So you need to be looking for this expression for the domain of all polynomial functions. Now the range is the thing that's going to change, and we're going to talk about that. So let's jump over to the lesson here and look at what they want us to do. All right. First, there's some vocab words, so check that. You see answer to question number 1 is basically what I just got done talking about. Oops. Right there. So use that. Range. We haven't discussed this yet. We will, though. But range is sometimes all real numbers. Again, more information from the lesson. So you'll have to read to get these vocabulary questions answered. So choose the best estimate for the domain of the polynomial function. This right here, domain of polynomial functions, we already know it's always, always, always all real numbers. So it's always going to be this expression that I showed you right here. Negative infinity to positive infinity. If you go over here, you can see that is one of our answer choices. So make sure you're choosing that. Here's another polynomial function. The domain of the polynomial function, always, 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 all real numbers. Also known as negative infinity to positive infinity. Now it's when we get to the range that we have to use some common sense, but it's really not too difficult. So remember, the range is asking the question how far the graph goes up and down. Well, we can see that our graph does not go past this point. which is 2. It goes up to 2, but it doesn't go beyond that spot on the graph right here. So that's kind of the upper limit of our graph. So then we know that 2's got to appear somewhere in our answer. But more than that, it also continues to go down forever, which means it goes to negative infinity. So we should be looking for these two values. And if we look through our answer choices, you can see pretty clearly that this is the correct answer choice. It goes from negative infinity and stops up to 2. All right. Number 10, similar idea. Look at the range. Now, if we look at the range and we look to see if there's any place on the graph, like on the last one, there was a stopping point. It didn't go beyond 2. Whereas in number 10, we don't have that issue. This end of the graph goes down, this end of the graph goes up. So that should tell you what the range would be based on what we talked about earlier. If there are no upper or lower limits, we're dealing with infinity, positive, and negative. Number 11. I'm just going to walk us through this one because they do a great job of explaining it. But find the minimum and maximum values for the function with the given domain interval. This is a lot of math way of saying all of the numbers between -9 and 7. So if I were to go through and take all the numbers all the way up to 7, those would be the x values. And so what they want to know is what are the minimum and maximum values, and they mean the y. So I think we can use common sense here, because if we're looking for the minimum maximum value, why don't we start with the minimum maximum values we already have, -9 and 7. So if I take -9 and 7 and I put them in for x here, what do I get? Let's open Desmos. Use our scientific calculator. I'm going to plug in the x value and find out what is the y value that I get when I plug in that minimum and maximum value of my x. Notice we're not talking about -9 and 7 as the minimum and maximum value because we want to know about the y, not the x. So that's why that is not the answer. And so let's see if we get a minimum or maximum value for the functions in the given domain interval. Also, it's not going to be none, because if we're working just between these numbers, somewhere between those numbers will be the highest point. So we go here, -9, and this is the function x to the third. So we do -9, go back here. Sorry about that, everybody. -9, 9 to the third power. And it says we get -729. Okay, so that works here. And here's our minimum values. So we're going to take that out as an answer. Now we got to see if it's negative or positive 343 for 7. So 7 to the third power. Let's go. We have 7. Move this out of the way. 7. Sorry guys, this keyboard just keeps getting in my way. But let's try to sort this out here. 7 raised to the third power is 343 positive. So that gets rid of this one, leaving me with this answer choice, the fourth answer choice, as my correct response. So make sure you pay attention to that. I think your answer choices may or may not be in the same order, but we're definitely looking at -729 and +343. And so again, when they ask for minimum and maximum values, you're just plugging in to find the highest and lowest, or in this case, highest and lowest y values. All right. Review questions. These are, again, coming from previous units. So I'm going to try to work through these briefly with you, get you started and let you finish them out. Determinant. This is from back in maybe unit 4. I'm not really sure I remember, but determinants are a property of or a value you can find out of a matrix. And I'll just tell you, it's very simple. You're going to take these diagonal values, 1 and 8, you're going to multiply them and get an answer. Multiply 1 and 8, get an answer, and then subtract the answer you get when you multiply these two numbers. And that is the determinant. So we do 1 times 8 and 2 times -4. Subtract the answers, and that gets you your determinant. So I'll let you do that. So it's the diagonals. It's the down diagonals minus the up diagonals. All right. Divide complex numbers. I'm going to get you started again. The best way for you to do this is to go ahead and multiply by 3 minus 2i over 3 minus 2i. And so you're going to do this twice. You're going to multiply 2 minus 3i times 3 minus 2i. That's the top. And then you're going to multiply 3 plus 2i times 3 minus 2i. And I think we had a review question like these in the last lesson, but you are doing the FOIL method, and you're going to FOIL out these, FOIL out all of these, and then you have to simplify it all the way out. Okay, so look back to the lesson before. I didn't do an entire problem like this, but I did do a FOIL method with i's. So you'll do that twice. You'll do it on the top, you'll do it on the bottom, and then the simplified answer will be one of these. That's it for lesson 9. The review will come out early next week. In the meantime, make sure you get everything done and get your notes ready for next week's test.